Okay, so this is a video that's been coming for a little bit. I ordered this a while back, and this is actually the second one. I am making the move to start using Plotter. Now, a little bit of backstory. I used to use a Filofax right when I got out of school. So this was like the 2003, 2004 era. I worked at a bookstore. We sold Filofax. So I had a Filofax Personal. And when my Hobonichi weeks that I was using this year just really let me down and I hated writing in the paper, I actually went back and dug out the old Filofax cover and have started using that a little bit. But apparently Filofax, when they made those covers 20 years ago, didn't really expect them to be around, I assume. So the lining started flaking out. But I was really liking the format, so I broke down a while back and got this first Plotter cover, which is the horsehair, and it is the black color. And I got it mainly because I liked the matte black bar on the back. But that being said, I also in here have a delivery from Dromgools where I'm going to add an A5 to the collection. So let's open this up and get started with that. So I'm going to open this up, take everything out, and then we'll go through what all's in here and open it up and do some initial setup and configuration of all this. And I do have a couple of things in here that are also for the Bible size, so we'll take a look at those as well. And I'll kind of walk you through how I've been using that to make sure that's everything. Okay, so with being relatively new to Plotter, I'm going to walk you through as I set this up for the first time in this A5 size. And then I have a hole punch I'll show as well. And some of my other A5 papers that I have around the house that I want to make my own kind of custom testing book. So I did get a little bit of the Plotter paper as a starting point, but I want to use some of my bank paper, some of my Usari, and other things like that to make a custom journal. So let me get all these inserts put aside. So let's start by going through what I have here, and then I'll unbox it and we'll start putting this together. So I'll wait and do this when we actually show the unboxing, but this is the A5 Plotter. I picked up a pack of the 5mm dot grid paper, the 2mm grid paper, a little ruler pad that functions also as a, under the page, and it's got a little divider up here so you can use it if you're using it for a planner to turn to the page you need for that day. A little ring supporter, and this goes on the rings, and I'll show you when I install it. It just protects the outer leather from the rings indenting into the leather, so I have a feeling if I would have had something like this for my Filofax, that lining might not have pulled out. So I'm trying to use this as a preventative measure. This is a pin holder. And to show you what that looks like real quick, I have one in the Bible size. And it just has a slot for a pin that you can slide in there. I currently have my Spoke Titanium CX that takes the Pilot G2. And that fits in there really well. So definitely want to have a pin that'll be dedicated to this. This is the band with the lifter. So another one of the little lifter divider type sheets, but it has the band to hold the cover closed as your, so it doesn't flop open when you have it in your bag or on your desk. This is a little zippered case that I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I wanted to go in and get it because I have a feeling there's going to be little things that I might want to keep with me in this. And I had something similar years ago in the Filofax that since kind of fell apart. But this seems like a good thing. It's got a zippered pouch, so we'll put that in there, and I'll have to see if that lasts in there long term, but I'm sure I can find a use for it somewhere else if not. And then these are the project manager folders. these are interesting. Someone in my local pen club brought some of their plotter stuff for me to look at before I ordered a lot of this. And these are essentially like a file folder that goes inside the plotter notebook so you can segregate different projects or things. I plan on using this to put different papers in each one so I can quickly go, oh, the Usari's in the green or the bank papers in the yellow. So as we get those up and installed and put some paper in there, you'll see how that's going to get used. So let me get all this aside. We'll open up the box and get started. Okay, so here we are opening up the box. Now it's got a little card here that just says the logo. Before using your binder, it talks about, you don't necessarily want to drop it, don't overfill it, don't bend it more than 180 degrees because it could break the bracket. Single piece of leather, so just kind of carrying information, little silica pack. And then the cover is in here, so let me get the box put aside. So the plotter cover comes in this. Now this is the Shiranami, which is a US exclusive cover. And it's this neat bluish that I think it starts as white and they dye it in some way that's unique with a different methodology. So I'll put a link to this from the Plotter website that kind of talks about it. But as you can see, if you're not familiar with Plotter, it's a 6-ring binder system. And, you can use it for journals. You can use it for a multitude of things. I don't plan to journal in this per se. I plan to use it more, like I said, as a paper repository to be able to carry around multiple papers with me. And then the nice thing with this is, as you add more things, you can take them out and reorganize them. So that way you can have consistency of, oh, I'm swatching inks. Let me swatch inks on this paper and then put like to like. I kind of picked up some of this after interviewing Olive Octopus Ink. Lisa, she uses a different ring bound system, and I really liked her approach and how she came up where she can pull out different papers to show side-by-side comparisons. So I wanted to give that a try. So these are just little filler sheets that come in there. So just to show on this side, this is a really interesting cover. And the reason why I went with this one is each of the different versions of the plotter has a certain metal color for the little metal bar that goes down the spine. They have it in rose gold, gold, silver, and black. I had the black one on the Bible size, and I didn't really like the idea of the shiny gold, and I'm not really a rose gold person at all, so instead of getting 2 of the black, I thought I'd give this one a try, and I already really like this color. It's just a very unique blue dye. So let's get into some of these accessories here. Now to start, this is that little ring protector. And it's got the little punch, so if you have one of those, this just pushes down over the rings and acts as a barrier. So when you have this closed, the rings are going to indent into this little flap of leather instead of into the cover. So it's just going to keep the cover so you don't see the ring marks on the outside. So very practical little accessory. And then as I took all of these accessories out of the package, it looks like the next thing that I'm actually going to need to put in for now is this zippered pouch. And I didn't realize when I ordered it, it actually has 2 pouches. So it's going to have one in the front and one in the back. So you push this down over the rings as well. That'll hold that in there. And then that's nice because it doesn't take up any of your ring capacity. So as you're adding in inserts, that'll definitely be a plus. So for everything else, need to open up the rings. And since I don't know exactly the order stuff will end up in yet, I'll just put stuff in kind of a random order for now. And that will develop over time as I get in to using this. But so far on my other one, I've preferred having the pen rest on the back. So I'm going to put that in first. Because more than likely, if I'm using this, I'm going to have the pen out of here. Now, if I'm using one of my other pens, that's still, out of the way. There's a chance I could move that to the front later on, but we'll just have to see how that develops. And then I think for this binder ring, I don't know. I think I'm going to actually pull this off here a little bit. I think I want the flap with the strap to be fully in the back. So that way, when I put it around the notebook, it will, see, get those closed back. It won't be in the way, it won't be in the middle. So I think that is going to work. And if not, like I said, this is going to be a learning process as I figure out how and where these inserts are going to go and what ends up being in here on a regular basis. So I'm not going to pull any of the papers off now, the 2mm and the 5mm, but I wanted to show these binders. Now in the first one here, the project manager pages, which is functionally the binder, it has a little drawing, and let me show this here. You open it up, put it in the rings, and you'd put your pages in these rings here. So that you'll have, these aren't really meant to be stuffed with a ton of paper, but you can have your papers in there for a project. Open this up, do your writing, turn pages if you need to, because that's going to kind of stay there. And then when you're done, close it, and then you can move on to your next project or your next paper samples or whatnot. And it did come in the variety of colors. There's 6 different ones. I really like that blue. It's going to match this, so that one will definitely go in here. The yellow and probably the gray. I think I'm going to start with like 3 and then adapt over time. So I don't want to put too much in here because that's something they caution about. And even with the Bible size I have so far, because the calendar format I like, I'm already kind of pushing the capacity limits on that. So I'm trying to learn from my mistakes there. So let me set these aside. So the other thing that I'll just show how it goes in, actually, sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Let's open up the rings. Okay, I paused for a second there. The rings, in trying to open them, I didn't want to force them. I think this is going to be similar to my Bible size, that after you've used it a little bit, it'll be easier to open. But for now, I took this out because I'm not certain if I'm going to leave it in there. So that way I can show putting all the inserts in a little bit easier. So let me get this put back in, the pin holder. So for these binders, they're just going to go in on the normal rings. And what I'm going to show for paper is, like I said, someone in my local pen club, they had a couple of sheets. So I'll show how this works with just one of these extra sample sheets that my friend Nick gave me. To show how this works, you kind of put it in like that, fold it over. So now you can come up, oh, here's this, do your writing on, fold it over, and then turn on to your next page, open it up, put in whatever you need there. So that gives you a little bit of flexibility. And it also has on the inside here and on the outside different printing. So you can have memo notes for an overall project or a date calendar in here, depending on how you're using this. So if you're using these for work, that would be very helpful. I plan on using this, so I might write on here, this type of paper. So that way I remember. I doubt I'll forget, but you never know as time goes on. It'd be good to have a reference in there. Or I might put a listing of, okay, I have this paper, but these are the inks that were swatched in here, or these are the pen writing samples, things like that. So a little bit of flexibility. Now, as for this ruler sheet that you can use as kind of a place reminder and use it, of course, as a straight edge, this does not have solid rings. So if you look at these rings, there's actually, try and get that, actually hold this, I might show it a little better. There's an opening on the ring, so you can pop this in and out easily without having to actually open the rings themselves. So for this, you can just pop it in wherever you want. And I'll show when I pull the Bible size one over and kind of walk through it. It's really useful because I put that in the middle of the week that I'm on, so I can instantly turn to the pages. So very helpful there. So in terms of the paper, I do like how they do their refill books. Let me just set this cover aside for a second. I've got 5mm dot grid, I'm a big dot grid fan, and their paper so far, and what I've been using from the Bible size, is great. Very fountain pen friendly. You can even swatch on it. It's a nice thickness. And then these are meant to be where you could literally carry this around if you needed to. And all these pages are meant to be ripped out. So you can pull it out and then put it in the notebook. So if you just had this with you, you can still take your notes and then use your binder as almost a filing system. And then Plotter also sells, they happen to be sold out everywhere now because I guess it's more of a thing you'd use with your calendar inserts. They sell a kind of storage binder. So if you take calendar pages out throughout the year, you can store them for records and things like that. So I'll probably pick one of those up, not for calendar inserts, but just for a larger ink storage. So if I'm going to an event, I can pull out and custom fill the insides with what I might need. So let me show you what I plan to do with my other papers to add more paper inside of this. Okay, so here is what I plan on doing. I just pulled this out of my Life writing paper. It's the bank paper sheet. And I got this pack from Vanness. And I picked up a 6-hole hole punch. And if you look on this, this has where you can do A5, you can do the personal size, which is also known as Bible size, depending on the Japanese use the word Bible size, which actually does not have anything to do with Bible. It was a different definition. And I'll see if I can find that article. Someone linked it on one of the Discords I'm on the other day. You can do A6 or mini pocket. And then what you do on the back here is you can slide the holes over to fit whichever size you need, so you can still do your 6-hole punch. So neat little thing. But what I plan to do is rip out some of these various A5 papers, and it's got a nice little guide here to line everything up, so you have the lines, you have it exactly where you want. And then when you punch, now I have an insert that can go into the plotter. And this also works. I use the Nimacine that you've seen on the channel. Now their pages are a little bit slimmer because of the way they rip off, but it also has the 6-hole punch as well. So I can rip pages out of there because I might have a section for work that I use one of the little binders for and organize things, because as you take notes, things are not in any kind of order, so it'd be nice to be able to organize those somewhat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch some sheets of bank paper. Here's some Usari. Here's one of the other A5 paper testing packs. So I still have like 9 sheets of each of these, so I can do a nice paper comparison pack in one of those binders. And then of course I also have the plotter 5mm grid and 2mm grid to supplement that as well. So that's my overall plan. So let me get a few pages of some of these punched, and we'll put them in this notebook and see how it's going to work out. And then we'll start looking at the Bible size plotter as well. So I'm not above admitting when I make a mistake. When I punched this one, the one I had ripped out as my first example, I didn't pay attention to the lines on the back that I showed you here, and one of them was still unpersonal. So definitely before you punch something, be sure you have everything in the right position. Now you can re-punch it. That's going to look a little screwy on this test page, but it'll work for now to be sure it fits in your ring. So keep that in mind if you're getting one of the hole punches. Always a good reminder, and maybe you'll benefit from my mistake as I'm learning this process. Okay, so here's how I ended up getting everything in here for now, for the time being, as a starting point. You can see how when it's closed, it has the band that goes around it. For right now, for a pen, I actually put a Lamy ballpoint in here, but this has the Uniball M17 ink in it. I think the pen I'm going to end up putting in here is a multi-pen. I've really been liking the Uni 4-in-1, but unfortunately, it is just too large to fit in here. So I recently saw an article Joe from Gentleman Stationer put out about an older Lamy 3-color pen. So when he gets some more of those in stock, there's a good chance that might become my trial run pen for in here. But in terms of paper, this is a Marumon Nimacine sheet that I had that I just punched to test. Now you can see this does come across, and let me try and get it over here backwards just to show on this side camera a little bit. The sheets are shorter because the perforated in the Marumon, that really doesn't bother me because the rings are lined up. So that's the important part. I then put about 10 sheets of this 2mm grid in here because that's going to be kind of my go-to paper. And then I use the little divider here. And then I have about 10 or so sheets of the 5mm dot grid. Those are the two most likely papers, because more often than not, I'm going to be writing on these and then filing them in some of these others, unless I'm looking to use one of these specific papers. So in this first little yellow binder here, I put the paper samples that Nick gave me. These are plotter papers, a couple of the sheets of blue, this one really thick that I think is like the drawing paper, and then a couple of these undated kind of weekly planner pages. This is the type of planner I prefer using, so I might end up doing that and getting the undated pages, but those are in there just to play around with, try different pens on, and kind of research before the 2026 calendar inserts come out. In this next one, I put sheets of, which one is this? This is the bank paper. So I punched 5 sheets of this Life Writing bank paper, have that in here. And then in this gray one in the back, I punched 5 sheets of the Usari paper. And I've been wanting to use the Usari more, so this is going to force the issue. And I did a video on the Usari journal, but I wanted to have the Nakabayashi paper in there. And I think now that I have this system, I'm going to end up buying more loose leaf packs in the A5 size, just so I can kind of intermix here and there. And then you see I've got the pencil board, and I did go on and go back and put in the little zippered pouch thing. Now, I'm not going to put a ton in here, because especially on the back one, if I was going to put something in, I think I'll put it on the front side. But I have like a little ruler. You know, yes, that has the divider ruler, but that might not always be the best thing, you know. So I might put a ruler in, I might put little inserts. If nothing else, it'll be for like sample pages or little cards and things like that. And speaking of that, I did want to point this out. So when you buy the planner or the plotter binder, it comes with this. So these are tiny little, I think like A7-ish size. So you see it's got the 3 holes on the top and then 1 on the bottom. So I plan on doing something similar with some of those other paper tester sample packs with the smaller B7s or things like that. As long as I line the punch up correctly, I can still punch them and put them in this notebook to have with the paper samplers. So I think that's going to be a good way to let people try different papers at Pen Club or at pen shows and things like that. So that's going to start me off for the A5 size. Now, let's get into what I already have that I've been using for a few weeks now in the Bible size. Okay, so I grabbed my old cover. So as I said, many years ago, I started with a Filofax Slimline Executive, which is essentially their personal size paper. And it was like card wallet slots and a pin loop that won't fit any kind of decent sized pen on all these pockets. And you can see along the rings here, all of that lining material is just flaking off on everything. It's, you know, it has served its purpose well. I carried this in my pocket for many years, but it was time for the change. So I replaced it with this black horsehair Bible size from Plotter itself. And you can see in here I have one of the ring protectors, and this really shows how it protects the cover, because this one has already been in bags and pockets for a couple weeks now, and you can see how those rings press in there, and then there's nothing on the actual cover itself. So that's what that is truly for, and that shows it really well. So this is something that came with the Filofax. It's just kind of like a fly sheet, and I went on to put it in here. And you know, when we got this Filofax, I had 2 of those old covers, and my wife was giving this a try at first, so she ordered custom Filofax inserts and got the little tabs for the month and things like that, but it turns out she needed larger, so she ended up going to an A5 system. So we had these sitting around, so when I brought them back to life, I'm just using them up for now. You know, I didn't want to try and find something new, but I modified it slightly. So in my pages, it's a week across 2 pages. So I've got the week here, I've got my divider, and then I put a sheet of grid paper between to act as extra scratch paper. So if I need to take notes on something, I have that in there. as extra writing. You can see here I've got random notes written in about work stuff or planning out video stuff, things like that. So I'm able to use that as extra writing space. And then if there's nothing important on those, I can easily just recycle those or use those for something else. So that way it frees up a little bit more room in the rings. One of the kind of a little bit upsetting things is Filofax, the holes, while they do line up, they punch their holes a couple millimeters deeper than the plotter, so it does not turn the best. You can make it turn, you have to kind of fidget with it, so I do look forward to having actual plotter inserts when that time comes. I think that'll make the turning pages a little bit easier to deal with, but it's not a deal breaker for now. So you can see I have the turning board here with the strap to hold it closed. I have some extra of this is the 2mm grid paper back here. And I didn't order these project folder things initially when I got the Bible size. But when I was ordering the A5, I went on and threw that in the order as well, because I think there will be a use for a couple of those in here just to keep the paper clean, if nothing else, because I do carry this in my pocket. So it'll keep less stuff from potentially getting on the paper, act as an extra barrier. And then I have, you can see here, the pen holder on the back with the spoke titanium CX. And in this, from Vanness, I got a different insert. So I actually have a needle tip Monteverde refill in there. And, just a side note, if you haven't refilled one of these or you're not familiar with changing out pens, this is a standard Pilot G2 size refill. So if you like that smaller point for needle point, you can easily pick up one of those. Actually, this is a Schmidt, not a Monteverde. So a Schmidt 5285 extra fine. So you can put the needle point in there. Don't drop your spring if you happen to have a spoke. But that's just a handy thing to customize your pen to how you want to write, be it changing out to a different color or changing out to a different tip size, be it needle, 0.5, 0.7, etc. So keep that in mind with any of your roller balls or just pens in general. You're not out of the water. If it's not writing perfectly for you, look into getting a different refill, and I'll put a link to some of those refills that I picked up from Vanness in the video description. So moving on, what I'm planning on doing with this is adding in a couple of these dividers, and I don't know what I'm going to put in them yet. This is more of planner, so I don't really need paper samplers, but I figure it doesn't hurt to have these around. If I have a segment for work or something like that, I can easily keep that in here. Now, in terms of the rings, I'm about at the limit, and you can see here, you don't want to overfill, and because of the calendar pages like they are, and get that out of the way, I'm kind of close. So after this May is done, I'm going to use that old Filofax binder just as a storage for the earlier part of the year. Not that I really need to reference my older pages per se, but in the past, I never got rid of the calendar until the next year, just in case. So I keep it around to the end of the year, and that's kind of like the start to the new year. You get rid of the old pages. So that's what I'm going to do. And as I go through the year, it'll be easier to turn the rest of these pages because there'll be a little bit more room in the rings there. But so far, I'm really liking the plotter stuff. The leather is great quality. The construction on all these pieces is really well done. I like that the pin loop actually fits some decent sized pins. Doesn't fit large pins. I think I only have a couple of my fountains that'll fit in here, but as much as I love my fountain pens, I don't use them for everything. So having a rollerball in here or a ballpoint in the other, that doesn't bother me, because more than likely if I have this on the desk, like right here, I can reach and grab 3 different pens and still use them on this paper with ease. But I like having one in there if I'm just carrying this around. I still have a way to write something down if necessary. So that's my initial onslaught into the plotter world, but are you a plotter user? If you have tips and tricks or things you found, please leave them in the comments. This is a new part of the stationery journey, and it's one that, seems like Plotter has a lot of die-hard fans, and there's probably extra little things or inserts that I have no idea exist that would be really beneficial to possibly add in for the future. So definitely leave me some comments of what you use in your plotter or your personal size Filofax or things like that, because they are the same binding. And be sure and check out the video description. I'm going to put in there links to those refills from Vanness. And don't forget, I do have a discount code from Vanness. Use DWRDNet and you can save 10% on most of your items. There are some exclusions. Other than that, like I said, if you're new to the channel, go in and click on that subscribe button for me. That'll really help out. Leave a like on the video and leave me some of those comments. Tell me what I should or should not do or change or try for the plotter system, either for the Bible size or the A5, because I really look forward to putting this all through the paces as the rest of the year goes on and beyond that. So until the next time, thanks for watching.